For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball podcast from the fans' perspective. Now here's your host, James Christopher.
And welcome to Let's Get To. I'm your host, James Christopher, and we are coming to you back home in Texas for the Constellation Energy League. We're out here at Constellation Field in Sugar Land, Texas, normally just the home of the Sugar Land Skeeters, but the Sugar Land Skeeters pivoted. When they saw that there was no baseball, they saw a lot of prospects and independent guys that still needed to play, still needed to keep working on their skills. They built a 4-team league coming out of this stadium, and we're excited for our very first game of the season here. We're gonna be back at least twice more before the season's over. Got a full show ahead of you. Andy Tom Cheson's here with me to take in the game. We're gonna be talking to Matt Durkin from Normal, Illinois to circle back with them and see just how the Kernel Collegiate League is going. We're gonna be looking at our trip from North Dakota, kind of wrapping that up, and so much more. So we got a lot going on. You all keep watching. I'm gonna go watch some baseball.
Show me the merch, the best from the pro shop.
And so we're back here from Constellation Field. The game is going on. Right now we are in the 5th inning and there are no hits for Team Texas. But we're here for Show Me the Merch, and we hit up the gift shop and we're gonna talk about some of the cool stuff we got. So first we started with the charcoal gray Sugar Land Skeeters Flex Fit ball cap. And honestly, I love everything about this logo. Take a look at this logo, the mosquito with the ball through his beak. I'm gonna lean over to my technical advisor real quick. Do they have beaks on mosquitoes?
Those are proboscis. So
they're not beaks. Oh, they are beaks. They're proboscis. As we know,
suckers.
They're suckers. And then we get, I'm a big fan of the logo baseball. I actually have one of these already, but Pete Incaviglia signed the last one, so now I can rotate it. And then we're doing a couple of, the cool thing what they did was the Constellation Energy League. So they created 4 other teams to play with. And so we have the Sugar Land Skeeters, Team Texas, which I did not buy any gear from. And then we have the Eastern Reyes del Tigres, which should look familiar to some certain Netflix reality show fans that I won't mention so as to protect their legal liability. And then they also have a spin-off of one of their mascots here, the Sugar Land Lightning Sloths, like everything about this look. So it's been a lot of fun, but we have more to look at. I'm going to reach over here, and collaborator Andy Tom Cheson also got 2 variations of the Sugar Land Skeeters hats. So we haven't got any hats from the new identities yet. They're not in the shop yet. We're going to be out here in a couple of weeks. And of course, everything here is about social distancing, and we had to get the Sugar Land Skeeters branded mask. And it's a really comfortable fit too. Really, really good stuff from the Sugar Land Skeeters. So go check out their website and order some of these fun looks.
From the Bleachers, the Let's Get To Game of the Week.
All right, so we're coming to you from the Bleachers. We're from the Insperity Club in Constellation Field with Andy Tom Cheson. We are again masked up to show that we're responsible. Andy, overall impression so far of the ball game in the field?
The ball game is pretty exciting considering there's something pretty rare happening right now. And the field's fantastic. If you haven't been out to Constellation Field, I highly recommend coming out. Matter of fact, the social distancing protocols are in place. There's distance everywhere. Everything's cashless, touchless. It's a great time to be at the ballpark. And even the weather, even though it's 104 degrees today, it's really comfortable in the park.
It was 104?
Uh-huh.
Wow, I did not actually notice. There you go. What has been, the social distancing is always part of it. And I think that they've done a good job of going through all kinds of different steps and protocols. What have been some of the ones you think have been the most like, oh, that makes me feel a little bit better about being here?
I think the temperature check when I walked in the door, that's a good first step and a good first sign. The fact that everybody on staff is masked up and gloved up. Everybody was really respectful about keeping space. Sometimes you don't get that everywhere, but it feels like the staff is making an extra effort to make sure everybody's having a good time, but doing it in a respectful way.
I think for me, the weirdest thing for me was the touchless hand sanitizer everywhere. You put a foot on a pedal and it just comes out.
I don't know how you get your lube, but that's how I get my lube.
We do have a great game. Now, this is your first time out here. What have you thought about the gameplay? Because sometimes that's where I think a lot of people get lost when they see what the talent looks like on the field.
Talent looks fine. It's baseball. And so there's a lot of good things happening on the field. Like I say, something pretty rare is happening. I'm not going to be like some people who's going to say out loud what's going on. But we've seen a home run. We've seen a couple of great defensive plays. Other than questionable third base play, I think it's been top-notch gameplay today.
There's been some questionable third base play. One of the things, too, we had some interesting dining options.
Mm-hmm.
We did the Insperity Club thing because, we wanted to have a home base and some AC. But what have you thought about, just options as far as what we can eat? How was your dog?
Hot dog was on point. The spicy sausage was great. I'm a little jealous of your steak manicotti.
Steak cannellini?
What? Cannellini is a bean.
We're Polish, everybody.
Cannellini is a type of bean, sir.
But not Goya beans.
No.
Not the official bean of Let's Get To. Pro Shop. That's always the big thing. We already hit it up. Am I wearing? Yeah. Thoughts about the selection at the Pro Shop?
I think there was a lot. I was a little disappointed the hats weren't in for the Constellation League teams yet, but they're supposed to be in this weekend. So if you're headed out, it's a good time to pick one up. Good selection on the Skeeters merchandise, obviously, because that's where we are. And there seemed to be something for kids, for women, for men, for everybody who wanted to get something. There are plenty of opportunities to spend money.
Come on now. Yeah, it's interesting because we're at an independent park that, generally speaking, is 20, 30 minutes away from a big league thing. Why do you think people need to give some time to investing in this kind of baseball?
Because it's just a night at the ballpark. If you are dealing with the stresses that we're all dealing with of either being quarantined at home, having to go in because you're an essential worker, or scared to death because you have to take a trip to the grocery store or to the mall, you can sit here with your family, your friends. There's nobody on either row, really 3 rows on either side of us. And you can have a beer, have a dog, watch a baseball game, and just relax for a couple hours.
I do think, to your point, one of the things that's been really special about this too is they're limiting their capacity to about 30%. Mm-hmm. The state will let them go to 50, but I think that they were smart in saying we're going to cap it at 30 to make sure people feel comfortable.
Yeah, like I say, the concourses are laid out in such a way that even though there aren't necessarily directional walkways, you've got plenty of room to be around everybody, and I think that's because they have limited capacity to the extent they have.
Well, we have 3 innings left to make sure that thing that we're talking about happening happens. We'll let you know if it does. But Andy, thanks for being out the ballpark
Always
with
happy
me.
to be here.
All right, so we're coming to you from the Insperity Club in Constellation Field. We got a great baseball game, but yeah, we're inside. Andy and I are inside today because it's like 1,000 degrees with 1,000% humidity, but we've got a cold Crawford Bach, which is so big it doesn't fit in the camera frame, like legitimately. But we're going to send this up to the Hitter Sports. Holler and a swaller.
No hitter over. I take personal responsibility for the no hitter being over.
To the first 10,000 fans, the Let's Get To promotion of the week.
So hey everyone, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Constellation Energy League, what it is, what they're doing, and why I think you should get out there and check it out, particularly if you're in the Houston, Fort Bend County, Harris County area. It is a lot of fun. So the Sugar Land Skeeters, the hat that I'm wearing, generally play at Constellation Field as part of the Atlantic League. Now, the Atlantic League is really Sugar Land, Texas, and then a bunch of teams in like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, essentially not close. And with COVID, with travel restrictions and the way that the hot spots have moved around, it was pretty clear to the league that they weren't going to be able to play a full league schedule. which is depressing because it's some of the best baseball, period, not just independent league. Like, it is about AAA level is how they would describe the level of talent. And so the folks in Sugar Land, Constellation Energy, got together and formed the Constellation Energy League. And they basically took the Sugar Land Skeeters and then created 3 other teams. They created the Eastern Reyes del Tigre, which, if you take a look at it, is a wonderful reference. The Sugar Land Lightning Sloths, which is sort of a phenomenon that happens in the stadium. They have a rally sloth. It's a blast. And then Team Texas. Now, the cool thing is that this talent pool is not just independent ball players, but also some players that are part of affiliated minor league baseball that were given permission to come and play. So that way they don't miss at bats. They don't miss innings throwing. And so you've got a collection of talent managed by some of the most recognizable names in the game, Roger and Kobe Clemens, Pete Incaviglia, Greg Swindell, to name a few. These teams are playing a 4-team league, and they're doing doubleheaders on weekends, and the games have been just exciting. What you would expect of that level of talent, with one really cool twist that the extra innings is a home run derby. It has been a blast, just some incredibly competitive baseball games. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is it safe? COVID is a thing. There's a reason why we're not going to Major League Baseball stadiums to watch games. And the answer is, it is incredibly safe. It rivals what Round Rock has done as far as making people safe. It is restricted seating. It is temperature checks when you walk in the gate. It is my favorite thing, which I'd never seen this before. I assume that they're everywhere, but where you step on your foot and the hand sanitizer comes out. It's signage requiring masks. You have to have a mask everywhere in the park, except for when you're sitting in your actual seat, which are roped off and marked off. And that way you can't sit someplace that's not socially distant. I'm a big fan of going to the Insperity Club. It's a big open space overlooking the field with also outside options for when it cools down a little bit. And they do still have some of the same great food options. However, it's not a buffet you serve yourself. You are served at a social distance. The bar is divided between soda and alcohol to keep you separated. Plus, the numbers are just driven way down. They are doing the best that can be done to still offer this service to people. And I use the word service on purpose because, we're now rolling into month 4 that this has been part of our reality as Americans. And it's not getting any better. It's getting sadder and more depressing. And at some point, you need a break from that. And a 3-hour break of baseball is perfect. But they're also doing it responsibly, and they're doing it where I felt completely safe. They're going to be playing games until the end of August, and I wanted to go through some of the promotions that they're offering. I know that I will be out there at least twice more, and so here are some of the things that you can do if you head out to the Constellation Energy League. They will have nights for their Silver Skeeters, which are Skeeters fans that are 55 and over, and you join the Silver Skeeters Club. Friday night fireworks. Thursdays are Dogs, Paws, and Claws night, where you get discounted hot dogs. Your dog can come to the game, and you get discounted White Claw hard seltzer. And again, Friday night fireworks. That's a big thing in minor league baseball. They've also got some special events coming up. So on July 24th, they're going to be giving away a Rally Sloth poster. July 25th will be Rally Sloth claws. August 1st and 2nd, they're going to be having Wizarding Night, where they're going to be giving away a scarf that represents the famous scarves worn in a famous movie about wizarding. August 14th is Jaws poster giveaway. And all I got to say to that is, y'all know me. You know I want a Jaws poster. It's going to be great. August 15th and 16th, we'll be out there for the Jimmy Buffett Hawaiian theme night, where they're going to give away a Sugar Land Skeeters Hawaiian jersey that looks really sweet. And for their final homestand on August 29th and 30th, they'll be giving away the really famous bucket hat, the Sugar Land Skeeters bucket hat. So look, a lot of the promotions that you come to expect from minor league and independent baseball are going to be still happening in Sugar Land. I think it's limited to the first 1,000 fans, but with social distancing and the capacity that they're limiting the stadium to, gives you an excellent chance to get something. Like I said, I'll be up weekend of August 1st and 2nd. I will be there the weekend of 15th and 16th. So if you want to come meet America's famous world baseball podcaster, He won't be there, but I will. We can do an elbow bump together and do a socially distanced selfie. So all I'm saying is, particularly if you're within a 2-hour radius, because it's about how far I drive, and you want to break from all of this and reminding ourselves of what it's like to be normal, get out to Sugar Land, get out to Constellation Energy League, particularly on the weekends where they're doing double headers. It is such a blast. You will not regret it.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9. Brought to you by Marco Fine Arts.
So we are excited to welcome to Let's Get To as our team of the week, a team of one, Mr. John Hartwell, who is a graphic designer, branding manager. John, first of all, how are you today?
I am doing very well in the midst of the global pandemic. I'm keeping my pencil sharp and keeping things moving.
That's about the best we can do. I really want to dive into what I think is one of, honestly, for a second, thought it was a real team and thought it was one of the best designed real teams that I've ever seen. But first, tell me a little bit about you and in your design work and kind of what you do for sports teams.
Sure. So I am a graphic designer and illustrator, and welcome everybody to my studio. That is a real live drawing board behind me. It actually gets used, and I go back and forth between pencil and paper and then my computer here to do digital work. I got started with sports design shortly after graduating from the Portfolio Center here in Atlanta back in 2001. I am a cartoonist and an illustrator and a nerd in general, and sports design was something that really was a good combination of my illustration and cartooning skills and my design problem-solving skills. I cut my teeth on minor league baseball, actually, with the San Antonio Missions back in the mid-'90s. I was living in Austin, and my buddies and I would drive down to San Antonio. I graduated from college in San Antonio. We'd go see the Puffy Taco. And I freaking love minor league baseball. It is the greatest sport in the world. I started to make a run at minor league baseball as a sports designer. I did the team identity for the Birmingham Barons back in 2000 something. I've done a couple of All-Star Game, Southern League All-Star Game logos for the Barons, and other work in minor league baseball. And I've also done work with a variety of different sports organizations. Most of my work these days tends to be for collegiate athletics, particularly small college athletics. But I've worked here for my hometown Falcons and the Braves. I've done work for USA table tennis. Getting some Olympic level work in there as well.
Wow.
So, all around a lot of neat and nifty stuff. And I mean, it's no lie to say that I love what I do, man. I really do. It's great.
So one of the reason why I found out about you is because I'm a big Christmas guy and a big baseball guy. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about the reindeers and how that whole thing started.
Sure. Well, like every small business solo entrepreneur, you're always looking to promote, right? And I think it was back 2012, I had the bright idea that, why don't everybody's doing Christmas promotions, right? Everybody's got some Christmas email that comes out. I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a minor league baseball style identity for a fictional baseball team from the North Pole. And I'm going to call them the North Pole Reindeer because I'm a smart guy. I figured out there are 9 baseball positions and 9 reindeer. So it just kind of made sense, right? I had a blast doing it. It was a lot of fun, and it came out, and people really reacted strongly to it. It got a lot of positive response. And I said, well, there might very well be some legs with this. So I started to do some other holiday themed teams. The next one I did was Arbor Day, and then I think I did Labor Day after that, and it just kind of built on itself. I did a Halloween themed team, and all of that was as an email promotion campaign. And I would send these out, 2-3 times a year, and always got good response from them. They all live now at holidayleague.com. You can see all the teams that I did. And the reindeer always kept coming back as kind of the main team that I did. The following Christmas, I did a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Shortstop trading card with an illustrator buddy here in town, Jay Rogers. and did a little team up with one of my clients, Sean Foreman, with Baseball Reference. And I've got to think that there are people who watch this web series and listen to this podcast who know about Baseball Reference.
Baseball Reference.
And Sean was kind enough to do some official stats for Rudolph. Threw it up on baseballreference.com. And the next thing I knew, I'm not kidding, that went out. I don't remember what day of the week it was, maybe on a Tuesday or something. It went out that Tuesday morning. That Tuesday afternoon, I had a call from the New York Daily News. And a dude wanted to do a story in the New York Daily News about the Baseball Reference page on Rudolph. It's like, sure, I'll be happy to talk to you about that. So, it literally went viral, and the reindeer showed up on Sports Illustrated and I think Fox News. I've got a bunch of different links on that website. The following year, I got some more illustrators together. We did a full set of trading cards for the reindeer. And then the year after that, I got together with a couple of junior architects here in Atlanta, and we designed a stadium, Nicholas Field, for the reindeer. So it's got this full story behind the whole thing. One of my best friends, Steve Leonard, does a lot of the writing for all of that reindeer stuff and holiday league stuff. And we just had a blast with it. It was just total fun. And then last year I thought, well, as I mentioned, every year I would get a random email. Somebody would find the reindeer around November and send me an email and say, hey, do you do t-shirts? And I go, no, I don't do t-shirts. And I finally said, all right, I got to do this. People are asking for it. So I put up a print-on-demand store last Christmas, and got that launched. And then, there's no minor league baseball right now. So I opened the store back up again last week. Tagged Ben Hill, intrepid minor league
friend of the show, Ben Hill, friend of the show. Yeah.
And Ben was kind enough to retweet that, and boom, dots connected, and here we are.
So, and you said that a team is played as the reindeer. Is that correct, or something similar?
That's correct. So a few years ago, it was suggested to me that the reindeer might make for a really good licensing concept for minor league teams who do Christmas in July promotions. And so I made a run at selling the reindeer as a licensing promotion. The Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, shout out to Aaron Hahn, general manager of the Timber Rattlers, and Jay Grzinski, for taking me up on it. And for one day and one day only, Wisconsin Timber Rattlers took the field as the North Pole Reindeer. And I've got a jersey that they wore on the field. And I've got some swag that they did, and it was great fun. It was great fun.
That had to have been, and maybe it's normal for you because you do sports design, but that had to have been really cool to see a design you created in the flesh, playing a game and all that stuff.
It's funny. I got an art degree in college. I learned painting and drawing and all that, but I was never destined to be a fine artist in a gallery. I do my work so people can use it, so people can wear it, so people can do things with it. I never get tired of seeing my stuff in the wild, as they say. I did the athletics identity for Georgia State University here in Atlanta, and I never get tired of seeing that logo on the helmet, right? But I will admit there was something special when the guys sent me pictures from that day in Appleton, and there's baseball players with the reindeer on their front. And I went, man, that's awesome. That's why I do what I do. I love it. Absolutely love it.
That is so cool. And some of the jerseys you designed for it, like I would drop $100 tomorrow if it was available. One of the things
I will make that happen for you.
Hey, I am into it, man. I'm not into it. So it's interesting because, you do what you do. And I feel like here in the last 5 or 10 years, we have become more culturally aware about the fact that there are designers. And as a filmmaker for 13 years, I'm like, yeah, people create things. It isn't just miracled. Where do you think minor league baseball design is going? I know like Brandios right now has pretty much cornered the market. Do you have what makes a good design for you? What makes a bad design? Where does that where do you fall on some of that?
Sure. If I can get a little philosophical for a moment, Many years ago, I took a backpacking trip. This was back in the mid-90s through England. And I went to a World Cup qualifier match at Wembley Stadium, England versus Poland. And I went to it because it's FIFA football, right? It's FIFA soccer. It's the World Cup. It's a big deal. I don't know soccer. I mean, I played soccer as a kid, but in the mid 90s, I don't even think we had MLS yet. So I went because it was a cultural thing, right? I want to go see what this is like. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. I grew up in Fort Worth, and I spent my summers in college drawing caricatures at Six Flags Over Texas, which at the time was right next to the old Arlington Stadium, that old tin can. And Nolan Ryan was the big thing. And I used to leave the park in 1990, 1991, and I would turn on the radio, WBAP, and I'd listen to the end of the Rangers game and, how did Nolan do? And I really got into this idea that baseball is America's sport, right? There was my team right here, and I loved being right next to him. And so this experience of the World Cup qualifier, this is England's sport. Well, doggone it, my sport's baseball. And I came back to the States, and that's when I just really kind of got into it, because it's what you do in your culture. It's what you do in your city, in your state, with your friends. And it's something completely unique, right? And there's just nothing like, just baseball in general, but then minor league as well. I mentioned earlier, my buddies and I, we used to go down to San Antonio to see the Missions games and to go see the Puffy Taco. If anybody in minor league baseball has not been to San Antonio to see Henry the Puffy Taco try and fail to get home base, it's awesome, right? It's one of the greatest things in the world. So I guess that's a very long way of saying that, where do I see this stuff going? It has to be about the local community. It has to be about where the team is. It's got to represent what that local environment is about. There's a challenge right now with major league sports. The Washington NFL team is changing.
As a Cowboys fan, I find this hilarious, by the way. Beyond the fact that it's necessary, I love the idea of Redskins fans spending disposable income they don't have.
Sure. But there's this the Cowboys name, the Giants name, the Redskins name. These have cultural equity, right? And what those mean, they mean what they mean because they've been around for so long. Minor league baseball, you've got a real opportunity to dig into the local community in a way that you just can't anywhere else. Right. And so, believe me, I have heard people complain about the wacky names that minor league teams have, but numbers don't lie, baby. And when your per cap merchandise shoots up by multiples of hundreds, there's something to be said for that. Minor league teams don't have TV contracts. So they're making money any way they can.
You hit the nail on the head for that. And I think it's always it's always interesting now that I've been doing this show to watch a community's initial reaction. And then they grew up. Mm-hmm. Like the Sod Poodles, they were beat to death. And now you go to that park and it's full. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to build a podcast around watching the San Antonio Brewers play. The Missions, I'll go see.
That's exactly right. And I tell you what, the Braves here kind of ran into that same problem when they moved the AAA team down to Gwinnett County. Kind of the same thing with the Rangers and Frisco and the Rough Riders, right? Mm-hmm. And so you got the Gwinnett Braves and the Atlanta Braves. What's the brand distinction? Why should people in Gwinnett County, go to see the Gwinnett Braves when they can just go see the big boys across town? I know fans get cranky about things. I get it. But there's also, you've got to give somebody a reason to come to your ballpark, and make it yours, right? Because the fan has to have that reason to put down their hard-earned $5, $10, $20, $25, $80 or whatever for a ticket and feel like they are emotionally invested. And that's why fans get cranky, right? Because they are emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So, is Sod Poodles a good name or not? I don't know. How does it play in Amarillo, right? Think about the New Orleans Pelicans, NBA, right? How many people around the country went Pelicans? Who cares about a Pelican, right? Well, those people don't live in New Orleans.
And don't know the history of that name, yeah.
And those people don't know that, the Pelican is on the state flag. They don't know that the old Southern League minor league baseball team out of New Orleans from the 30s through the 60s was the Pelicans. In New Orleans, it makes perfect sense. Does it matter to somebody in Chicago? Who cares? They're in Chicago, right?
Chicago. One of the things that Brandios, rightly or wrongly, gets criticized for is all the logos kind of are grimaces and then a thing swinging a thing. And, that's sort of the thing. And I get that a lot of my friends who follow minor league baseball at a macro level see that. But to your point, if you're living in Amarillo, you don't know that your logo looks a lot like the Missoula paddleheads. It doesn't matter to you. What would you describe your aesthetic as? Or do you have one? Are you pretty flexible?
Gosh, I would like to think that the way I approach a project very much has to do with what are the needs of the client. I'm kind of biting my tongue now because I just got done with an athletics identity for a school here in Georgia in the university system. And the president had a very specific set of things he wanted to solve. They're going to unveil it next month, so I can't really say much about it now. But I will say that the solution that I delivered to them, I think they were a little surprised the first round of stuff. But once I walked them through, okay, I'm showing you this because of this and this because of this and this because of this. There are certain expectations that I think people have about what a sports logo should look like. And I get that. You definitely want to be aesthetically consistent with what certain expectations are, right? I'm not going to create a sports logo that looks like it should belong on the lipstick counter at Dillard's if that's not appropriate, right? Because there's just certain market sensibilities that you need to play towards.
Sure.
By the same token, not every sports logo has to be an angry-eyed animal. It can be something else if it's appropriate for what the client needs to solve. And so I think to answer your question, I don't know that my particular aesthetic, I try not to follow a certain formula. It's very much about what are the needs of the client and what does their brand story tell me? What can I pull out of their story and pull forward in a way that makes them distinct? Because it's that distinction that's so important to a brand. I mean, we live in a crowded visual marketplace. The environment behind you, right? That's a lot of stuff, and it's glorious in its baseballness, right?
Right.
But a logo can look like a logo can look like a logo, and so how do you make it look different from everything else? To me, that's the design challenge.
One of the things you said that I think was interesting that I think a lot of people don't understand, and I want you to kind of explain a little bit, is how important is the story the brand's trying to tell? Like beyond, we want it to look cool, but you're also trying to make it last. And I asked this question because there's a great story out about how the Spokane Indians have bridged the gap that the Cleveland Indians probably won't be able to bridge of actually involving the local tribe in the design of their look. So how important is that story you're trying to tell?
Okay. I like to say that if you put 10 branding experts in a room and ask them that same question, you'll get 10 different answers. My answer is this. It is 100% the most important thing of any branding project. If you don't have your story down, then all you're doing is creating pretty pictures. And all you're doing is creating another angry-eyed animal. And who cares? Then it just becomes a novelty item. I think a lot of folks in the market, whether it's sports or otherwise, when they think of their logo, they think, yeah, just give me a cool logo and be done with it.
Right.
The heavy lifting of any brand identity starts with the brand story. And that story, well, what is a brand story? A brand story is the vision, the values, the mission, what makes an organization unique and distinctive. And if that can't be articulated, then no matter what logo you create, it's just going to be generic and it's just going to be another thing in the universe. But if you have a story that you're trying to tell, and that story is unique, that story is differentiated, that story means something from your different from your competitors, then your logo should represent something about that. And that's why I say, like with the collegiate client that I just did the work for, the solution that I gave them and that we landed on very much comes from that story. And it very much digs into the history of the institution and pulls those vision and that mission and values forward. And it's not just an athletics logo, but it's a way to extend their institutional brand, right? So for a baseball team, you might think, oh, it's just baseball. You just swing a bat, so what? Well, how is baseball different in Omaha, Nebraska than San Antonio, Texas, than Birmingham, Alabama, than, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And why should people care about plunking down $10 to sit in your stadium on a Tuesday night? It matters because it's the story that you're trying to tell them. And what the organization, what the team does to then tell that story, not just with the logo, but with their promotions and, how do your ushers treat people? How are you interacting with your fans in a way that gets them involved with who you are? That's where branding happens. It's not just the logo. The logo is just the point of the spear. Everything else that comes after that needs to relate to that story.
That's interesting. I think it's a fascinating answer. I guess as we wrap up, then where can people find your work, and if they want to hire you, where do they go to give you dollars? And tell us about finding the reindeer gear as well.
Sure. So thank you for that rather softball question. If folks are interested in finding out about my sports brand services, and I will say to any minor league baseball GMs who are listening, guys, I'm available. Feel free to hit me up. Go to Hartwell Studio Works, WORKS.com. I've also got a podcast there, and actually the first 3 episodes of my podcast are about what is a brand identity. So I'm kind of pulling from that information as well. So yeah, so you can go to my studio website. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Hartwell Studio. You can check me out there. For the reindeer stuff, real easy. Go to northpolereindeer.com. The store is up for all of your Christmas in July needs. We're all jonesing for a little minor league baseball. Get yourself a shirt, get yourself a tumbler. And like I said, for listeners of this show, I've got a special discount code for everybody. At checkout, enter in Let's Get 2, the number 2. So that's LETSGET, the number 2. And you will get 15% off orders over $40. And that will run through July 31st.
Well, John, I'm going to end the interview so I can jump on that discount. Thank you so much for being on Let's Get To. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And let's hope we're all back in the stadium sometime soon.
On deck, the Let's Get To interview. Brought to you by Fine Line Sportswear.
All right, so we're excited on Let's Get To be rejoined by Matt Durkin from the Normal Cornbelters. Those of you who saw our episode on them know that we had an absolute blast out at the corn crib. Matt, how are you doing? Y'all did a lot with a little bit of time. How is it going?
It's a lot less hectic from the last time we saw you. That first weekend, I don't even know how much sleep I got that first month or first week. I don't want to know. But things have cooled down a lot here. It's more, we're in that getting into a better efficiency part with concessions, ticket sales. We're in a lot better groove of just our routine of everything. So it's not as crazy as that first week, but it's more being stable for the people that are here in the ballpark.
It definitely felt like we had a series of 30-second conversations as you ran from one end of the concourse to the other.
Yeah, that first week, it felt like my walkie was just blowing up nonstop with, hey, we need this. So it's nice to know that, hey, we got that first week out at a push when we got everyone here, and then you see that retention rate increasing. So all the people that were here for Star Wars night or the 4th of July are coming back, and they see a much more toned down, efficient model of the ballpark.
So that's really what it is, right? Like you guys train and prep for 9 months or whatever it is in the off season for things to go one way, and then COVID happens. How much of your whole system did you have to really change up for your game day operations?
So it is crazy. So we usually have, I think, 8 months to prepare for a prospect league season. So having 28 days to do everything we do in 7 months is why it was so chaotic. But in reality, it's pretty much the same exact format. Like concessions get here at the same time. They start making food the same time. Our team store and ticket sales all start at the same time. The only difference really is we have to take more into effect of the cleanliness and sanitation of the stadium. So we take extra time cleaning all the seats, spraying down different parts of the concourse, making sure bathrooms are cleaned more regularly, like every 30 minutes to an hour. So that's probably the only big difference between us in a normal game right now. But if it can keep our workers and fans safe, we want to do it as much as we can.
I was feeling for you guys when I was following y'all on Twitter when I was in North Dakota, and I think y'all had an extra inning game. And maybe it was – and how much is that like, oh, my God, we're going to extra innings. Now it means the second game gets delayed. How does that factor in as to your stress level?
It did a little that night because we had a post-game band playing. And so it's kind of works same as a fireworks night where due to noise ordinances in the city, we have to be done by a certain time. So when you have those extra inning games, especially on those bigger nights when you have post-game entertainment, you're kind of like, all right, let's go wrap this up. We got to get going here. Well, luckily for us, it was a really short second game, so it kind of evened out. But if that second game would have went a little longer than normal, we probably would have had a 20-minute performance by the band. But luckily, they were able to play an hour afterwards.
Oh, that's really good. How has the I noticed a couple of things. It seems like the fans out at the Corn Crib were super flexible and were like us learning how to deal with this COVID thing. How has the fan retention been? Have y'all had is it stayed pretty strong?
I think the first week we had it was more excitement and people were like, hey, it's something new. We haven't gotten to go out in 3 or 4 months, but our attendance has still been great. We're more than up probably 150, 200% from where we were last year. So that's great.
Wow.
But you do see a lot of people that I've never seen before. And I'm always at the stadium running around that I didn't see until that first week we were open. So it's great to see, hey, we never saw these people before. They've never been to the Corn Crib, but post-COVID and post that KCL inaugural week, they're still coming out and still coming to games to see some great baseball.
I wonder, too, how much of that is I know for me, just personally, when I watch the major league players and the owners complain about millions of dollars, and then I watch these kids out here trying to get a shot, I way more want to watch that than I do want to watch entitled rich people.
It's great because we had a lot of JUCO guys, especially that they weren't having necessarily the best time at their school. They went the JUCO route to a year to try and build up their recruitment profile. And we had one guy especially who he threw a no-hitter. His first night out had pitched a complete game. The second one has gone like 6 or 7 offers.
Oh, good.
Just via social media in 1 week of pitching. So it's good to see not only we're doing stuff for the fans and our workers, but even the players on the field are getting a lot out of it for their future professional career as well.
How much of a sense do you feel that they're just excited to be able to play baseball again?
It's insane. Like, you just see the excitement level, even on a Wednesday night when they know, hey, our attendance is not going to be as great as it would on a weekend. And you still hear the music blasting outside the locker room, all smiles during BP. So kind of special to see that you're a part of that and it's just one minor part that you do, but it's making such a big impact on those kids' lives.
Really and truly. Okay, so how much time do we have left in the Kernel League season? How many more weeks do you have left?
So we're starting our third week here. Last night, our game got rained out due to some pretty bad storms in the area. So we have 6 weeks total. So after this, we'll be halfway done, and our season ends on August 9th.
And for fans that are in the area, what else can they look forward to get out to see for the season? Like, what other cool promotions do you have lined up? More bands, more fireworks, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we still have 4 fireworks nights coming up. There's one tomorrow, and then Saturday's our Ben Zobrist bobblehead day.
Nice.
Yeah, he's from nearby in Eureka, Illinois, and played for a collegiate team called the Twin City Stars in the early 2000s. So we're kind of celebrating the Twin City Stars that day and giving out bobbleheads of him in their uniforms from when he played. Outside of that, we have a ton of 4 fireworks days after that, and then a big Margaritaville night and superhero night at the end of the year.
Will the Margaritaville, will there be jerseys?
Sadly, no. No
jerseys. Okay. Well,
we originally were looking at some beach-themed jerseys, but it just didn't work out this year.
Just didn't work out. So, you guys have really navigated this thing as well as anybody. Nobody's done it better than what you guys have done down there. When do you start thinking about 2021? Like, are y'all starting to plan promotions for that already, or do y'all are just like, let's get through?
So promotion-wise, we're probably going to start in September. That's when we start playing, hey, we know we're going to have Star Wars night. We know we're going to have a superhero night. But you kind of start looking at partnerships with local corporate or small businesses. Say, hey, what do you want to see at the Corn Crib, and what can we start doing for you? So that process starts the planning in September and then really gets implemented in October and November, so we can start marketing it once Christmas and the New Year hits.
So I know this has been a big challenge for you. You talked about cramming weeks of work into days. What has been the most satisfying part for you as an individual, somebody who's just really worked hard?
So I was an intern. This will be my 3rd year with the team, but I was an intern in 2018, and that was the last year the Cornbelters were professional baseball. So the attendance wasn't good. It was terrible. Last year, it wasn't the best either because we had a transition year. But just seeing that huge increase in attendance, and when we had Star Wars night being sold out for our COVID limit, I think we had 2,300 people in the ballpark before players or workers or anything like that. So it's really cool to see. That's the first time I've had an attendance night that big since I've been a part of the team. So just seeing where I started as just an intern compared to now, what progress we've made. So that's pretty special.
Show me the merch, the best from the pro shop.
And now welcome to a bonus edition of Show Me the Merch. First, I am wearing one of my favorite jerseys of all time. Check it out, is the Savannah Bananas, because this segment's going bananas. It is the Savannah Bananas jersey. It was fan designed very much, again, in that aesthetic that I love, that very Astro 70s thing. I'm going to have an entire team's worth of different jerseys before this journey is over. But I want to dive into some more Savannah Banana stuff. They are one of the best brands going in all of baseball. They are a blast. They play games in kilts. I really want to try to get their GM or somebody in the front office on the show, but they're a blast. But let's start out what we got. Well, first, going to go see my grandson this weekend in about a week. And of course, you got to bring stuff, and he's really getting into ball. So I start with his very first Savannah Banana shirt. Look how tiny it is. And then, of course, his pops needs to match. So I got the green Bananas shirt. Now, one of the cool things that the Savannah Bananas have done is, even though they are playing games, they have embraced mask culture. And not to be outdone, I had to get my own Savannah Bananas mask. You know, masks have gotten stupid politicized. If you think about it, it makes sense. If you're asymptomatic with COVID, you're less likely to pass it to someone if you have a mask on. Do the Bill Nye the Science Guy thing. Blow out a candle, now put a mask on and try to blow out the same candle. You can't. We want to get back to being able to see baseball games at something other than a reduced capacity. We want to get back to eating in restaurants, all that stuff. And until we have antivirals and a vaccine, which we will have eventually, just wear a mask. Now, we've gone from one of the newest and most outrageous brands in baseball to one of the most well-known brands in baseball. So I'm going to start with the Durham Bulls Hit Grass Win Salad, Hit Bull Win Steak bobblehead. Those of you who have seen the movie remember that it's a fixture of the ballpark, and it's still there. When Nathan and I were there last year, we actually tried to go and see the go to eat steak there, but they were closed at the time, the window that worked for us. Now, of course, again, grandson, super cute. And I got his dad a Durham Bulls hat for Christmas last year, so now they can match. And one of the things that's been hilarious across minor league baseball, and on this segment we'll see a little bit more of it coming through, has been the utter embracing of, frankly, just how rough this year has been. And so the Durham Bulls released the 2020 This Is Some Bull shirt. This is probably going to become a regular fixture in our house, but check out both the Savannah Bananas and the Durham Bulls on the web to get some fun merch. Even if you can't get out to games, the Savannah Bananas, I think, are sold out, and obviously Durham's not playing because of their affiliation with MLB, but you can still support these brands by buying some really cool merch.
Seventh inning stretch. A look at baseball's hometown.
So we started the non-baseball portion of our trip visiting Fort Lincoln State Park in Mandan, North Dakota, on the banks of the Missouri River. First, most Texans and rivers. I'm always wowed by a big river. In Texas, we only have, I think, 14, and none of them are naturally navigable to the ocean. So anytime I see a big river like the Missouri, I'm in awe of the size, the strength, and I immediately start singing Deep River Chevy Chase style from the movie Vacation. In general, though, I'm also a big state park guy. At least growing up, state parks charged fees, national parks were free, so the state parks were generally a little bit nicer, a little bit well kept, and a little bit better shape. So as much as North Dakota gets a bad rap for being flat, it's really got very interesting terrain with ridges and hills, and something about the wind blowing over tall grass that just brings a sense of peace. The fort was the home of Custer's 7th Cavalry. Visiting the stables was really, really cool. I was part of the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in the Army, and while our horses were actually Humvees, the traditions of the cavalry, the verbiage, even the wearing of Stetson hats and spurs still exists. So it was kind of cool to see that cultural touchstone. The fort itself is laid out over a large tract of land with long buildings that served as barracks and other buildings spread out. Again, just gorgeous with rich green grass, and the contrast of the light blue sky made it a great way to spend a few hours before the game. Custer's home sits in front of the large parade ground. As I was looking at it and didn't get too close because there was a bunch of people touring the house and social distancing and all, come to think of it, I'm kind of a natural social distancer. I just kept thinking, maybe Custer should have called in sick to work that day. I was struck by the large flag flying over the parade ground. I'm aware of what the flag means to some, the negative connotation it can have, and I respect that, especially what that might mean for Native peoples. But for me, it will always be about the promise of what America can be, and the brothers and sisters of mine who paid the ultimate sacrifice trying to make that happen. Now on the fort is a monument to the Civilian Conservation Corps, part of FDR's alphabet soup. So much of this country was built on these programs as a way to keep people working, keep morale up, as a way to try to mitigate the effects of the Great Depression. When I see some of the things built by the CCC and other of FDR's programs, I always think of my father-in-law who passed away a few years ago. He was such a fan of those programs as a way to keep people working. Now, when visiting the Slant Indian village of the Mandan people, you are informed that this land is sacred to the Mandan people. You're asked to show respect by not carving your initials, climbing on the lodges, or using them as a restroom because someone must have, because people suck. But the lodges are an impressive example of engineering. Perfect domes built on sloping landscape, and inside is a combination of recreated living spaces with graphics informing you of the life of the Mandan people. Now, after the park and between the games at Bismarck Municipal Ballpark, I headed to the state capitol. State capitals are a favorite of mine. My first date with my wife was at the Texas State Capitol, which is a beautiful building. We were dating long distance. I was in the Army. She was going to school. And so we kind of had to have these conversations about what we thought, wanted, and really believed out of life early in the process because we were dating 7 hours away. And so a walk across the state capitol was where a lot of that happened. But I highly recommend the Capitol in North Dakota. It's not as big as the one in Texas. It's maybe not as grand, but it's still beautiful. Wide green spaces and some really cool statues, including one of Sacagawea and a buffalo decorated the grounds. So on the state capitol grounds, they had their boxcar for the gratitude train, which was a train of gifts from Europe to the United States. And they had a beautiful Veterans Memorial, honoring all of the fallen from all of the wars America has fought. Now for lunch, I hit up the Stonehome Brewing for our pretty delicious pizza and a flight of beer. Now the next morning, I got up pretty early and took the 2.5-hour drive to Fargo. And after the Red Hawks game, I did a little tour of North Dakota State University. I'd seen a few of their college game day games, the fact that there is a real following for this level of football that I just really hadn't know anything about. And I was really curious to see the campus, curious to see this very small, dominant school. I love the graphics, the Buffalo logo, and just the overall design of the sports complex. And again, having seen it on game day, having seen how fired up those fans got, I do a baseball show about obscure baseball teams, so I'm into it. And I was curious because being a Longhorn fan, a Longhorn grad, I know what it's like on a bigger scale, and I love the fact that people get fired up for this team in this part of the country. The campus itself features a beautiful war memorial dedicated to former bisons who have fallen in combat, complete with a towed 105mm howitzer. And then I wrapped up my North Dakota trip with a little German beer and a Polish sausage at the Wurst Beer Hall in Fargo. Baseball brought me to North Dakota, a state I'm not sure I would have ever visited otherwise, and I'm so glad it did.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
All right, so that wraps us up from Constellation Field. Team Texas
With the comeback.
with the big comeback, 6 runs.
5 in an inning. No, it was 6 in an inning.
Yeah, 6 in 1 inning to claw their way back. Good experience, good night.
Other than third base play, it's been a fantastic night. Third base cost them this game for the Skeeters.
They really did on both teams, actually. Third base play was iffy. No, great job. I thought the play was awesome. It was cool to see the ball fly out of the ballpark a little bit.
Yep.
I know that we talked on our show about we need more stolen bases, but sometimes it's okay to see a little pop.
Yeah, and I think this was a good balance of a well-pitched game up until the later innings, and just enough offense until the explosion in the top of the 7th.
Yeah, we actually talked to the GM of the Skeeters beforehand, and the guy that had the no-no was pulled because he's on a pitch count because they've been in camp a week. So, it kind of sucks for him. But no, great episode this week. Thanks for being out at the ball game with me.
Happy to be at the ball game. Always happy at the ball game.
Always happy at the ball game. We got another great episode coming up for you this week. This guy will be back with a couple of other people to do a preview of the Major League season.
If it happens.
Which now we think it might. You think it'll start. But so stay with us. We'll be back again on Friday. So until next time,
let's get to